How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Cinemaholic Productions. It's crazy. We're still alive. Like, what's going on here? We don't even know. We are going to probably be super weird and uncomfortable because we haven't done this in a long time. Elephant in the room. But we're going to get back on board the Cinemaholics train. We've kind of been out on off weeks anyways. There have been too many things that I'm too crazy about talking about. I don't know how Rye_Gordon feels about it, but we're here for a movie that I'm also not very enthusiastic about. But Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
This is interesting enough because I was really looking forward to it, but now I'm just kind of like, meh. But before I even go, I want to play a little game with you. I want to do 2 truths and a lie. Just some fun trivia about Ready Player One. Are you in?
So the rules are like you're gonna ask me truths.
I'm gonna say 3 statements.
Oh,
2 are true, 1 is a lie.
I guess.
And then you have to guess which one the lie is.
Okay. All right. Go for it.
Okay. So first statement was originally approached to be in this movie.
Who? Sorry.
Gene Wilder. Before he passed away. Another one would be that this is Steven Spielberg's 32nd movie. And the final one is that this is Steven Spielberg's first science fiction film since War of the Worlds. Which one's the lie?
I would say the lie, let me think of Spielberg movies recently, would be the second one. I would say the lie is number 2.
Dang, you're good. You're good. That was incorrect. The statement was incorrect. This is his 33rd film.
Okay.
Isn't that's crazy that we can sit here and that we can say that this is Steven Spielberg's 33rd film.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And that's all that I have to say about this movie.
Okay, that's the end of the episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, no.
Ready Player One. We're talking about Ready Player One. You start us off. I want to know, you read the book. I didn't read the book. I heard it's not like the book at all. Did that ruin your movie-going experience?
Well, first off, I actually own the book. I'm a little bit ashamed to say, because I bought it, because I'd heard good things about it. What was the question again?
Did reading the book enhance or ruin the movie-going experience?
Well, I certainly think the movie's better than the book.
Wow.
To tell you the truth, I don't remember a whole lot about the book, if that counts for anything. I remember it had a shit ton of pop culture references, and I remember the general plot, which is the general plot of the film as well. As far as does it differ a lot from the book? Kind of. There are particular sequences. Are we going spoilers with this, or should we give general thoughts first? Okay, I'll start with my general thoughts. I think that as a book reader, you probably, as a non-book reader for this, enjoyed it just as much as I could have. I don't think there's anything that would add being a book reader. It's not like Game of Thrones where you understand more about the character, because really there's not a whole lot of a character, and that's probably my biggest complaint with this film. I do want to say overall I enjoy this movie. I think it's fun. It's a very fun movie. In fact, there are sequences in this that are a blast, like a really, really good time to watch. However, the main character in this movie, if you could name me 5 like characteristics other than the pop culture he likes or what he looks like, then I'd be very impressed with you, because really this is just a cardboard cutout character. There's nothing to him whatsoever. He's just like honestly the worst type of gamer. He like confesses his love to a girl in a very creepy scene after meeting her for like a couple days maybe, and it's oddly realistic because I've heard that type of encounter go down in games. It's just like unmute my microphone and be like, yo guys, there's other people in this game and this is really weird and creepy. But for that reason, I kind of admired that. But I felt like my biggest issue with this movie I'd have to discuss in spoilers. I think Olivia Cooke is probably the best character, and in my opinion, they should have changed it and made her the main character because she actually has backstory that kind of adds to the tension, and she has a reason to be in this fight other than me like 80s pop culture. And I think that lots of the Easter eggs are cool or whatever, but the references, there's only one painstakingly loving reference in this film that we'll talk about in spoilers. So, but performance-wise, I think the performances were great. I think the direction's great. My only complaints with this movie, and there's quite a few, come on a screenwriting level.
Okay. I'm so split on this movie. I think for every pro I could state, I could probably state a con that goes along with it. I wish I would have known more about the world and more about the rules to the contest. I feel like the point system, the five, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, how they get points, and kind of the rules with that were definitely not discussed. I don't know if that's in the book or if they just purposely left that out. So that's kind of a con, is that I feel like I didn't get as much explanation as I wanted. But to counteract that, this movie's long. It's like 2.5 hours, and it feels like 2.5 hours, which is a pro and a con. I was engaged the whole time, but I wouldn't want them to add more exposition into it because it was already so long. I couldn't have sat in that theater for much longer. I agree with you. Performances were awesome. I liked Ty Sheridan. He didn't have much to go off of, like you said. Wasn't much backstory to him. Olivia Cooke was fantastic. I really dug her character and motivations. And Mark Rylance, I thought, was great, phenomenal. I didn't even recognize that it was him until probably halfway through the movie. It clicked, and I was like, oh, it's the BFG. And the Oscar winner, Russian. He was a Russian, right? Bridges Spies.
Correct.
Yeah. So I really ended up having a more enjoyable and fun time in the theater more than not. And honestly, I recommend it. It's just there's not as much meat and substance as I would have hoped for. So go ahead and you rate it first. I'll rate it, and then let's get into spoilers. If you have any that you want to talk about, sounds like you do. I don't have too much more to say about this.
Yeah, I'll rate it real quick. I would give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's fun. I think it's worth seeing if you're interested in seeing this. It's a Spielberg movie. You should definitely go watch it. It's just there are tons of issues with the screenwriting, like I said, and I mean, you said I kind of agree. I was never really not engaged or dreading it, but I think they could have easily cut 30 minutes off this movie, very easily. The third act feels like it honestly kind of went on a little long in a couple parts, but it never bored me to the point where I was actively upset.
Okay, I'm going to give it a 7.5. I had a really good time. I think a lot of people are going to have a really good time. My biggest hesitation going into it, we talked about, was I heard how much reference and nostalgia was going to be in this, and that the book specifically thrives on. And I was dreading that, and I didn't want to get hammered over the head with just like nostalgia porn. And that was a pro to me. I think there was a very good balance of nostalgia references from the 80s, from the 90s, and from current day. I think they did a really good job of hearkening back to that era, as well as engaging a younger audience that didn't live through the 80s. Specifically myself, I was born in the 90s. So, I enjoyed it, and I think they did a really good job at reaching all those audiences. So let's talk about the Shining scene.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just about to ask you, do you have a favorite reference in the movie?
The Shining, for sure.
Yeah.
The whole scene was just spot on.
Yeah, the thing that, I mean, The Shining, obviously, you know this, it's one of my favorite films ever. It's my favorite horror movie. I've watched The Shining probably over 15 times in my life. So the thing that I really appreciated about that scene, and that's the one reference in the movie that I feel like they did a great job with, because it's painstakingly down even to the framing. There's the low angle shot of the typewriter with the paper coming out, and you see Parsifal come up over it the way that Wendy Torrance does in The Shining. And I was seriously just like, oh my gosh. And the set that they got, I don't know how the hell they did that, but it's great. And the fun part about it is we have this character H who's never seen The Shining, but hopefully we all have, who's watching the movie. So that's the fun of it, is we're seeing these scenes where, you know, the
you know what's coming
out of the bathtub, and we know what's going to happen, but she doesn't. And I think that's it was a blast. That scene, the entire time I was sitting there just like, holy shit, this is great, this is great, this is great. And I just kept thinking that.
Well, and I loved a ton of specific things about that. My favorite part of the Shining scene is how much they were able to fit in such a short amount of time. I just kept sitting there like, oh my gosh, they just did that. They just did that. Going from the typewriter scene to the girls and the tennis ball to the room, and then the scene that we just talked about with the naked lady, and he's like, oh, man, I'm just going to go for it. Oh, well. And then they keep going. And then they flip you outside into the maze, and then the axes, and then right back into the pantry. And it was just, it was porn. And I loved it. And that was by far my favorite scene and reference in the whole movie. You said that you had a spoiler scene that you had beef with.
Well, now that you put me on the spot, I can't really think. Well, I guess here's some of my complaints of the movie spoiler wise. I think the action in this movie is really front loaded out of satisfaction. I think that race sequence is incredible. The way the camera moves in that is like really, really cool. And then the last action sequence, it's neat, but I don't think it's as good as that action sequence. And I feel like there was a huge betrayal of the Iron Giant. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, is because me and my cousin were actually talking about this the other day. Is the Iron Giant in the original movie is like this pacifist who, when he went and got violent, it was something that was like a horror sequence. It was something that he didn't want to do. He was operating outside of his own will. And at the end of this movie, they have the Iron Giant like just blowing up shit. And I was kind of just like, I felt kind of weird about that way with my childhood. And the thing is that or I guess relating to my childhood, and there were a couple things that rubbed me the wrong way about this movie. I think specifically because we just went through a period where there were tons of people really blowing Star Wars The Last Jedi out of proportion to where they're like, you ruined my childhood. And we learned that there's this kind of like group of people who live under the rocks who essentially let this pop culture define who they are. And you and I are both people who love movies. We love them. We live, breathe, eat, and sleep movies, basically. But we both have things that we like to do in our lives outside of film, and have things that define us outside of this. And I feel like the main character in this movie doesn't. And so I felt kind of weird as far as that goes about a character like that. And I feel like it's going to almost legitimize certain groups of people. Maybe I'm thinking too far into it. Am I thinking too far into it, Ryan?
I don't think you're thinking too far. And I don't know. I don't think it rubbed me the wrong way, or I don't think I had an issue with it, because I think it was presented more, at least in my head, it was presented in a way that it was like, this is a direction we could go in. Like literally the whole community is like that. And the Oasis has taken over the world, and it is the world now. People would rather live online. And that's so scary, because that's a direction that we're heading. And we totally could end up in 2045 in a scenario like this. And I really did enjoy that. And the corporate struggle, I think, worked really well. I have a pro that I wanted to talk about and a con that I wanted to talk about and get your opinions on. Pro, I really liked how much of this movie was in the Oasis. I think it was all done very well. The rendering and the 3D and the CGI, all of that was so good and very believable. And I kind of had a hesitation on that going into it, not knowing, where do you draw the line between the real world, or do you spend all your time in the Oasis? Because that's not really your real actors. But And I'm curious, I don't know if you know if it was motion capture or how they recorded that stuff, but I think it was done very well. And my con that I do want to bring up is how it ends and how it kind of just wraps up. I felt like they had to shoehorn in this kind of redemptive moment for Ben Mendelsohn's character where I don't think he needed that. And that whole scene just kind of was like leading up, leading up, leading up, happy ending. I was like, what? What? What do you think? How do you feel about the ending? Was it satisfying for you, or did you feel a little gypped?
It was very Spielbergian. That's what I will say is like, and in the sense that in lots of his old Amblin movies, which this is very much an Amblin movie, as far as like the kid going up against a big, group of adults, and the kids are the ones who take their asses down. And I agree with you like 100%. I thought it was very clumsy, and I don't know why he didn't just cap like the kid, because up till then there was nothing that told me he wouldn't have done that. So it felt very out of character in my opinion. But it was, they couldn't have just shot the kid in the end. I think to kind of comment off your Oasis stuff, I thought the Oasis looked amazing. Like every sequence in there, it at first, the character, I was kind of like, oh, it looks a little goofy, but it really grew on me. And I actually thought that the stuff in the Oasis is like some of the most visually imaginative stuff Spielberg has ever put to camera. And it's worth seeing it alone just for the visuals of this movie. I didn't see this in 3D. I don't know if you did.
Nope.
Okay, so I don't know how the 3D would be. I would actually be curious to watch this movie in 3D. There was one more thing I kind of wanted to mention, and then we could call it quits if you want to. It's just that I've heard people complain that there's really not tension in the real world in the third act of this movie, and I could not disagree more. I think the third act really raised the stakes in some interesting ways, and it's kind of similar to the book as far as like Artemis or Samantha's character inside the I think they're called IO6. I forgot what they are, but in the
yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I kept thinking LOL. It was like 101 or 106 or 6
yeah,
years or something.
yeah, I think it's like IOI or something. But she's inside their facility and operating in behind enemy lines from within there and trying not to get caught at the same time. And I found that to be very tense because she was my favorite character in the movie, and it felt like she was in real danger in the film. But yeah, overall, I think this is a fun movie. I think it's completely harmless. And to kind of go back to what I was saying about like this kind of fan culture that I feel like is this movie's legitimizing, I don't think Spielberg made this movie cynically at all, and I didn't view it cynically. All I was saying, it was something that I thought of because the character really doesn't have development outside of this pop culture world that he constantly lives in. And there's a really odd choice at the end that felt like they could have went really Spielberg with. He has an option to turn the Oasis off, and I don't remember that device in the book, and he does for 2 days of the week. But I almost wanted him to turn the device off to try to fix the real world, because the real world's in like the shitter at this point in this universe. And I wanted to see like, let's unplug, embrace life for like what it is, and like look at the important things. I don't know about you with that, but
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think that that's a direction that they could have gone and maybe should have gone. From what I've been hearing, they've changed a lot from the book. Uh, and my whole theory on that and philosophy on that is I believe that's totally fine. You've got a book that works in a book form, and now you've got a movie that works in a movie form, and you have to cut stuff out. You have to change things. Some things that work in a book don't work on film, and you have to hit certain beats. And I think Spielberg does that very well. I enjoyed it. Would I have changed a few things? Probably, but I'm not Spielberg, so I totally enjoyed it for what it was. I think that's gonna do it for us today, guys. Thanks for joining us back and being a cinemaholic with us. We have been gone, but we're coming back. This week will be a little weird. maybe we'll be on and off. Spencer might do one. I'm going to be out of town for a week, so stay tuned. We've got some big movies coming out. What are you most excited for in the next month, Spencer?
A Quiet Place.
Me
Yeah,
too.
that's definitely my most anticipated. I mean, Avengers is coming out. I'm excited for that, but I'm more excited for A Quiet Place. I think the premise of that movie sounds incredibly promising.
I'm excited too. And I think it's at like 100% or something. Had huge. People are stoked, and you guys should be too. Make sure to comment down below. Let us know what you thought of Ready Player One, and comment down below what your favorite Spielberg movie is. Follow me on Twitter and stardust at Rye_Gordon. What about you?
You can follow me on the same places. Also, Letterboxd. I've kind of been dabbling with written reviews. All
Looking
at
good.
Oh, thanks, man. At Spinny Hand. Thank you all very much for watching, and go play a video game.